Let's continue our discussion on chapter number 7. In chapter number 7, we are going to see 49 sections. What is cyber law? What are the standards? Then what is the work of cyber forensic department? And what is the role of auditor or how to do audit in IT environment or of IT regulatory issues? Okay, let's see. First, we will see what is the role of auditor in IT Act. Okay, what we are supposed to do is first we have to understand what are the IT Act provisions, what are the sections, what are the penalties, so that we can make the company aware of the consequences of the actions related to IT. Then impact on compliance. Okay, this IT Act, it will have an impact on risk management activities, assurance activities, then compliance activities. Okay, also governance activities. What we have to do is we have to understand what are the changes we are supposed to do as per IT Act, and then we are supposed to integrate all these four into our IT strategy. Okay, so understand the impact on compliance. Then now majority of the information will be stored in electronic form. That is the reason we are learning this. There is always a risk of misuse of data. There is also a risk of non-compliance with sections. It may be either intentional or unintentional. Either the person may be aware of the sections, but he still may not have understood how they are supposed to be complied. Then what is the cost of non-compliance? What will happen if we are not aware, if we don't make the client aware of the penalties and all? What are the procedures? Okay, so these are the 6 points. This is the role of auditor in IT Act. Two things you have to understand. The two things, understand, and there are two risks. Okay, so this is how you can remember the role of auditor in IT Act. After this, we have objectives of IT Act. First one is e-filing. E-filing of documents with government. Earlier, even now also, we are filing the majority of the documents in physical format instead of e-filing. What is the objective of IT Act is to enable the people of India to file the documents in electronic form. Also, we will call it as e-filing. Without having the proper sections or the law to facilitate that e-filing, and it is difficult to understand. Then to give legal recognition to electronic fund transfer, then to e-books and to digital signature. If we are doing electronic fund transfer from now on, it will be also considered as a business transaction. Earlier, it was not included. Earlier, as in, see, IT Act was enacted in 17 May 2000. Okay, now it has been amended in 2008. We are learning IT Act of 2008. Okay, so earlier we didn't have the provisions relating to electronic fund transfer being recognized as business transactions. Then if you are maintaining books of accounts in electronic form, it was not recognized by law. you are supposed to maintain physical books also and electronic books also. But now if you maintain electronic books, it will be deemed as you have maintained physical books. Okay, now we have given legal recognition to these points. Then legal recognition to digital signature. First, we prepared a authentication procedure called digital signature. Now we have given it a legal recognition. Then, okay, remember these dates: 17th May 2000 and 2008. Then amend laws about evidence. What all will be constituted as evidence, such as whether transaction log will be constituted as evidence, then activity log, then SRS. Okay, so what we will do is we'll just prepare a long list of all the documents and we will see whether it is evidence or not, whether it is in electronic format or not. Okay, even the computer source code, it can also become evidence. Okay, which are the laws? It is Indian Penal Code and Indian Evidence Act. We also have RBI Act. Okay, so this is all for so that we can consider digital evidence in court of law. Which evidence? Digital evidence in court of law. That is the reason we are having this act, because in no other act we have all these points regarding digital evidence. Okay, so legal recognition of 3 points: electronic fund transfer, electronic books, and digital signature. And then this case law, that what does the IT Act want? It wants to amend laws regarding evidence. This evidence we are talking about from Indian Penal Code, Indian Evidence Act, and RBI Act. Okay, let's continue. Now let's see what is the scope of the act. Okay, these are some basic questions I'm taking in the beginning. It is applicable to whole of India. Even offenses committed outside India are also covered in the IT Act. Okay. IT Act applicability is also to the offenses committed outside India. But there is one condition. What is the condition? This is a condition. Computer resource, computer system and network should be located in India. Okay, so it must be conducted from India. Then what are the 3 issues in the act? It is authenticity, reliability, and accessibility. These are the 3 issues we are talking about in IT Act. Okay, whether we are supposed to give legal recognition to the electronic transactions, such as electronic fund transfer and all. Then if books are maintained in the electronic form, whether we are supposed to give it a legal recognition and whether they are considered to be reliable, and when they are supposed to be assumed to be reliable. Okay, those are also the issues we are covered. And then accessibility, whenever you access a record, what kind of authorization you must have, and who are the officials who have the authorization to access these records. Okay, so also we have such as accessibility. So these are the 3 issues in this scope. Okay, once again, first we will talk about this case law, what all is covered, whole of India and even offenses outside India. And what is the condition? The condition is that computer resource, computer system or network must be located in India. Okay, what is CR? CR is computer resource. What is CS? CS is computer system. And what is NW? It is network. After this, now let's see what is the work of cyber forensic or fraud investigation. Only one short note is there on this, on their working. Not a lot of questions are there. Okay, their work is to gather digital evidence for court. Where is this digital evidence defined? It is defined under IT Act 2008. Okay, it is a standard process of investigation. It is globally accepted method It is not something new or bizarre. Everyone knows about it. The practices have been already implemented in a lot of countries. Then section 43B and 65 to 67B cover the offenses related to IT Act. Then it is a scientific method of investigation. Why we are doing all this? Because there is increasing computer frauds and fraudsters are always searching for loopholes. Okay. Even not just we need to have digital evidence, we have to also prove that in court of law that how we obtained it, what were the measures, were they as per the IT Act or not, or whether they are globally accepted practices or not. All that also you have to prove in court of law. Earlier, before this IT Act, what was the problem? If your system, your computer system was hacked, okay, you can only understand your computer system was hacked if you enter into the logs of the computer, which is not allowed unless you take the permission of the company or the manufacturer. Okay, so what happens is whenever you go to the court of law and you try to give a statement that we looked into the logs of the computer on our own without permission, there itself you have committed a fraud or you have committed an offense. So now, because looking at the logs is a scientific method of investigation. Now, if you look at the logs of your computer, whether it was hacked or not, now it is considered as legal. When it is considered now, after the amendment in IT Act 2008. Okay. Now, doing inquiry, looking at the computer source code and all, it is all legal only if it is your computer system, computer resource or net. Okay. So earlier these hackers used to hack. Now we can understand if our system is being hacked or not by looking at the logs and all. Also, using the trail, the how hacker hacked, we can also hack the hacker's account. Okay, we can also do that, or we can also set a trap for the hacker. It is allowed. Okay, why we are doing this all this? Because we want to protect our information systems. Okay, have you understood these 4 questions? Is any point you want me to repeat? I will just take it again.
Understood, sir.
Let's continue. Okay, is it a bit fast? Because
No, sir, it's okay.
okay, now let's look at the requirements of CB from system audit. Okay, we will now only take today CB instead of taking all the requirements at once. We'll also not take all the sections today itself. We will take only a part of sections so that you will be able to grasp them better. Now, what are the requirements of SEBI in case of system audit? How we are supposed to conduct system audit as per the SEBI requirements? Okay. Now, the audit must be as per terms of reference and guidelines. Okay. Terms of reference plus guidelines plus norms of SEBI. Okay, we have to see the 3 things of SEBI. What are those? Terms of reference, then guidelines, and then norms. Okay, you can remember this as NTORC. Okay, there is a vehicle now. It is a 2-wheeler vehicle called NTORC. Okay, you can remember it as that, NTORC. Then system audit, maximum 3 successive audits can be conducted. Okay, you cannot conduct more than 3 audits successively. Then a proposal must be given by the auditor before conducting the audit. If he wants to conduct audit, is supposed to give it to SEBI. Now tell me, what are we auditing? Are we auditing a stock exchange or are we auditing a company?
System.
Here we are talking about stock exchange and not a company. SEBI does not regulate companies, it regulates stock exchange. Then this proposal or the audit schedule, we are supposed to give in advance 2 months. Okay, if you are submitting it late or before extension is given by SEBI, you are supposed to take the consent of the SEBI. Then your audit report must specify 3 things. What are the 3 things? Non-compliances, if there are any, by the stock exchange. Then qualitative comments. What is qualitative comments? You are not just giving statements that these are the facts and all, but instead you are telling that what is their impact. You are explaining them, what are the other options the company has or the stock exchange has. So we will just call it as informed decisions or qualitative comments. Then whether there is any scope for improvement, we will also give suggestions and recommendations for that. So audit report must specify 3 things: non-compliances, qualitative comments, and scope for improvement. Okay, this is not your normal audit report that we give for the company with opinion, because in that we don't have qualitative comments and scope for improvement. Then consider the last year audit report open issues. Okay, what are open issues? We have in the last year in the audit report, we have we or someone else has reported the issues, the non-compliances and all. If they have not yet been resolved by the stock exchange, we'll just call them as open issues. So we have to also consider them in our current year audit report. So this is also one of the things that you need to mention in your audit report. Now, so total we have to give how many points? 4 points in audit report. Okay, total 4 points. Then whatever the non-conformities are, we are supposed to correct them in 3 months. We means stock exchange is supposed to correct them in 3 months. The time limit given is of 3 months. After this, now let's see how to select an auditor. He must have minimum 3 years experience in conducting audit of stock exchanges or clearing houses. Okay. What happened? You must have 3 years experience in conducting audit of stock exchange and clearing houses. Okay. So normal audit experience he must have of 3 years. Then only he can conduct system audit. Okay. Normal audit he must have conducted for 3 years of stock exchanges and clearing houses. Only then he will be allowed to conduct system audit of stock exchanges and clearing houses. Now understand, stock exchanges, clearing houses. What are these? These are securities market participants or securities industry participant. Okay, so we must have conducted the audit for 3 years of these participants. Okay, it can be either a stock exchange or a clearing house. Then he must also have experience of means he must have completed the CISA course by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Then he must also have knowledge about COBIT. Okay, what are the frameworks? What are the modules under COBIT? What are the management processes and all? Then there should be no conflict of interest with stock exchange. The audit must be fair and independent. This conflict of interest, it has been defined in Companies Act 2013. Okay, we have to see whether the auditor is qualified to conduct audit or not. We have to see whether disqualifications have all been considered or not. And we have to also see whether cases are not pending in SEBI against that auditor. If no cases are pending, then only he will be allowed to conduct audit. Okay, this is also already a disqualification given under Companies Act 2013 that if cases are pending, then you cannot conduct audit in such a manner. Okay, so this is the auditor selection norms. CISA, COBIT, then 3 years, then no conflict of interest and no cases pending. So you can remember it as you are not supposed to do two things and you are supposed to have knowledge about two things. You are not supposed to do two things and you must have experience of 3 years. Now let's see what are the norms they have given about system control. Okay, who has given this? SEBI has given this. Okay. Now along with the audit report, the stock exchange is also supposed to give a declaration. It must be either a managing director or CEO. Okay, it must either be yes. Tell me if I just forget about securities and integrity of information system. Okay, what is this declaration about? It is about the security and integrity of information system. It is MD and CEO who has to give assurance that information systems are being protected. We have the adequate controls. We have the adequate protection measures and all. Okay. It is not our responsibility. It is the responsibility of MD or CEO. Okay. We just have to see whether the controls are effective or not. Then KYC, data audit trail, if it is as per if it is uploaded and modified or not. Okay, if there is any modification or if it has been uploaded, we need to know that. Then Ministry of IT and Communication. Okay, they have a panel of auditors. Okay, these panel of auditors, they keep on giving the guidelines and all. We have to use those guidelines as a reference in conducting our systems audit. For example, they will tell you that these are the controls the stock exchange must have and how to audit these controls. Who is giving this? Panel of auditors. Where we can find this panel of auditors? We can find them in Ministry of IT and Communication. Okay. So these were the points for system control. Now let's see what are the audit report norms. We are supposed to give the comments for the stock exchange. Sorry, we are supposed to place the audit report and whatever comments there are of the stock exchange we have received. These two things we are supposed to place before the governing body of SEBI. Governing body of SEBI. Okay, what comments you are talking about the stock exchange? We have already told in our audit report what are the non-compliances, then qualitative comments and scope for improvement. Okay, if we are talking this much about any stock exchange, the stock exchange must also give their comments regarding this, whether they can accomplish those scope for improvement suggestions or not and all, and what are the shortcomings or what are the problems they are facing for implementing the same. Okay, so two things we will place before the governing body of SEBI. It is audit report and stock exchange comments. Then what is the coverage of NTORG? Okay. Just remember it as NTORG, terms of reference, guidelines and norms. Then if any qualitative input is required for improving, then that also will include in the audit report. Okay. So this is also very easy. Requirements of SEBI, just remember them step by step. The important one is obviously systems audit, how to conduct systems audit as per SEBI requirements. Okay, let me ask some question now. Yes, so what is this point of key audit trail, KYC? Have you understood this point?
No, sir.
Okay. Whatever KYC data is there with the stock exchange. Okay, the stock exchange keeps on doing the KYC of their either the brokers and all, or the customers or investors and all. So this KYC data, whenever it is being modified, uploaded, or downloaded, okay, we need to make sure that audit trail is there. Okay, we need to make sure that audit trail is there, such as if you are obtaining KYC data from your broker or your customer or your investors and or any other depository participants, it should look in the records that this is the transaction or this is the manner in which you obtained that KYC data. Okay. After that, if you are modifying it or if you are sending it to someone else, that KYC data, okay, you are uploading it means sending it, or you are downloading it. Okay, then adequate audit trail must be kept to make sure that how you receive that KYC data. Okay, so this point it is talking about that your system must have controls. Your system must show audit trails of in relation to KYC data. Okay, what are the three things? It is in relation to modification, uploading, and downloading of KYC data. Okay, now have you understood this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, keep continuously talking in the chat box, huh? Because okay, let's continue. Okay, all the points in these, all these questions, you are okay with them? There is no point remaining.
No, sir.
Now let's see some sections. We are directly taking the important sections first from 65 to 67B. Okay, you must have already seen them in movies and all. It is not something new. First one is tampering with the computer source code. Okay, what is computer source code? Okay, this computer source code, we put it in the compiler. After we put it in the compiler will execute the program. Okay, if you tamper this computer source code, what will happen is instead of doing addition using a calculator, it will do subtraction. Okay, so you are not destroying it, actually you are changing it. Okay, so if you are changing it, destroying it, altering it, modifying it, okay, it is considered to be an offense under IT Act. Okay, what is the penalty for it? Penalty is 2 lakh rupees or 3 years or both. Okay, 2 lakh rupees or 3 years or both. Then section 43 offenses. Okay, let's see what are the section 43 offenses. First one is computer contaminant. Okay, we have already seen it in the chapter number 3, protection of information systems, that what is a virus. Then worm. Okay, so if you are introducing, okay, only 10 minutes are remaining. If you are introducing any virus or any worm into the computer system, it is considered to be an offense under section 43. Okay, what you are doing is you are infecting the system so that it reduces the efficiency of the system. whenever you introduce the virus or a worm, it will not directly or immediately impact the computer system, but it will make sure that over the passage of time, it corrupts the entire system. Okay. So if you are contaminating the computer, then it is considered to be an offense under section 43. Then if you are copying data without authorization, or altering data without authorization, or again altering information in computer resource, okay, or you are altering computer source code. Here we are altering computer source code with the intention of damaging it, okay, with the intention of damaging the computer system. Okay, here in section number 65, the act is silent about damage and all. It is only talking about destroying, modification, altering and all. Here we are the intention is of damaging the computer system. So if you alter the computer source code in such a way, then it is also considered as offense under section 43. Or if you are giving assistance in contravention. Now tell me, what is the difference between data and information? Data and information, what is the difference?
Data gets transferred into meaningful information. Data is a raw data asset.
Okay, so if you compare data and info, information is actually processed data. Okay, so you can write a formula that data, after it is processed, it becomes information. Okay, there is also one more formula that if you add the functional relevance to the info, then it becomes functional information. Okay, plus if you give a strategic direction to this functional information, it becomes strategic information or sensitive information. Okay, my eyes are burning now because okay, let's take a break after 5 minutes. Okay, so I hope you have understood this. Yes, any question in offenses under section 43? Okay, these are just small points. Don't write computer contaminant, copies data, alters data in exam. Okay, what you are supposed to write is, yes, what is the wording they have given in the section? Okay, accesses or secures access, introduces or causes to be introduced any computer contaminant. Okay, you have to write it as it is, the sections in the exam. This is the only chapter where you are supposed to learn the sections as it is. Okay, if it is the case that you are not able to remember and the time is also less, only then you can use these terms for writing points in the exam. Okay, but make sure that you learn these points, and then you remember the section. Okay, what is the penalty? It is 3 lakh rupees or 3 years or both. Okay, so I will just circle them here so that you can remember it. 65, 66 and 65B. Okay, then receiving a stolen computer service resource. If you know that the device that you are purchasing, it is stolen from someone else, it is not of a second hand quality, it is not original quality, you are not the seller is not the original owner of these goods, then, and even if after that, knowing that you are purchasing that computer resource, then you are said to be committing offense under section 66B. Okay, the fine is 1 lakh rupees. So remember this as 231. Okay, remember it as 231. Okay, just change the color. Now, punishment for identity theft. Okay. Identity theft. You are using the electronic signature of someone else and you are pretending to be someone else. using that electronic signature, then it is considered, the punishment is 1 lakh and 3 years. Now see, it is not or, it is and, it is 1 lakh and 3 years. Then punishment for cheating by personation. Okay, now here we are not talking about electronic signature. Here we were talking about electronic signature under section 66C. Okay. You can remember it as 66C does not include cheating. 66B includes cheating. Okay. Tell me which cyber fraud we are talking about when I am talking about identity theft using electronic signature. Yes, do you remember masquerading? Masquerading.
Yes,
And cheating by personation. Okay, we'll just okay, no. See, okay, here just say that you are pretending to be someone else. Then punishment for violation of privacy. Okay, what privacy you are talking about? Okay, if we are capturing a photograph or image of the private area of any person, okay, we are talking about the private areas of any person, then it is considered to be a violation of privacy. Okay, remember this term, private areas. Then what is the penalty? It is 2 lakhs or 3 years or both. Okay, it is or, not and. Okay, then punishment for cyber terrorism. Okay, tell me the example I gave for cyber terrorism in chapter number 3.
Infosys example.
No, that is a website defacement. Na? Infosys example is for website defacement. In cyber terrorism, we are talking about North Korea and Sony, right? North Korea and Sony. What did North Korea do? Okay, let's see now in detail what did the North Korea do. In chapter number 3, we were only supposed to understand the concept. Now we know in detail. First, let's see these concepts. I think we missed them. Okay, what is personation? Okay, even they can ask you directly what are these terms, that what is personation. You have to make sure that you know the terms and definitions. What is personation? It is using identity of another person with intention to deceive. Okay, using identity of another person with intention to deceive. And after that, we were talking about cyber terrorism. Okay, let's take a break of 10 minutes, then we will start again.